everyone, this is Nidhi from Edureka and I welcome you back to Edureka's YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to cover HTML and CSS interview questions. Imagine yourself in interview answering every question with confidence and leaving a lasting impression on your potential employer. So welcome to our video on HTML CSS interview questions. If you are preparing for front-end developer role, this video will cover the important questions and concepts you are likely to encounter. Whether you are a beginner or just looking to brush up your skills, this video will help you to approach front-end interviews with confidence. Before we get into the details, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated on latest tech content from Edureka. Also remember to check out Edureka website for our training and certification courses. The link is in the description box below. So before we answer those questions, let's examine the current job demand for web developers. In India, the IT sector is booming with web development leading its way. Currently, there are over 1.5 million web developers in India and the number is growing 20% annually. According to the recent data available on LinkedIn, there are over 10,000 job openings for front-end developers, over 21,000 job openings for back-end developers, and over 15,000 job openings for full-stack developers. And it's not just in India, the demand is strong globally as well. In USA, according to the data available on Indeed, there are over 1,800 jobs for front-end developers, 1,900 jobs for back-end developers, and over 3,000 jobs for full-stack developers. So now is the perfect time to start your learning journey and get a job as a front-end developer, back-end developer, or a full-stack developer. So this is why here we are with these essential HTML CSS interview questions to help you build the skills and confidence needed to succeed in this field. So let's dive in and get started. First of all, we are going to cover the top 15 HTML interview questions. So the first question that we have is, what is doc type? And the answer is, a doc type or document declaration is an instruction that tells the web browser about the markup language in which the current page is written. That means it will tell the browser that what is the type of the document that we are writing. For example, in this case, the type of the document is HTML. So now let's move on to the next question. So the next question we have is how to redirect to a particular section of a page using HTML. And the answer is, to redirect to a specific section of a page in HTML, we use anchor tags with ID attributes. So basically, we assign an ID to the target section and link to it using ID in a href attribute. Now let's move on to the VS Code. There we are going to see how to perform it. Right here, we have created the two sections, that is section 1 and the section 2. We have used the button for the section 1 and 2. We have included the address of the section 1 and 2 using the href. And here we have given the ID as the section 1 and then we have used this section 1 ID to give the location of the section 1 and section 2. Now let us move on to the output. There we are going to see how it works. So this is our section 1 and 2. We are going to click on section 2. We have been redirected to the section 2. Then section 1 and then we are back on the section 1. So this is how you redirect using HTML. So now let's move on to the next question. So the next question that we have is, are bold and the strong tag same? If not, then why? And the answer to this question is, no, the bold tag and the strong tag are not same, because the bold tag is a physical tag. That means the text written under the bold tag makes the text bold to draw attention. Whereas the strong tag is a logical tag which is used for formatting the HTML text. It is also used to show the importance of text by making it bold or highlighting it. So that's it about the bold tag and the strong tag. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question is, what are the two types of web storage in HTML5? And the answer is, the two types of storage includes the session storage. It stores the data of the current session only. It means that the data stored in the session storage clears automatically when the browser is closed. And the second one is local storage. Local storage object stores the data with no expiration date. The data is not deleted automatically when the current browser window is closed. So that's it about the two web storage in HTML5. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question is, what are semantic elements in HTML? And the answer is, the semantic elements in HTML are the tags that clearly describe their meaning and purpose in the content they represent. They enhance the code readability and accessibility, making it easier for developers, browsers, and search engines to understand the structure of the web page. For example, the header tag, footer tag, section tag, article tag, time tag, and navigation tag. These tags enhance the accessibility and SEO because they provide the context of the content. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question is, what are the HTML tags used to display a table? And the answer is, there are 4 major tags which are used to display the table. The first one is caption tag, which is used to define the caption of the table. The second one is table header. This tag is used to give the header to the table. The next one is table row, which is used to define the row of the table. And the last one is table data, which is used to give the table data inside the table row. So this is how you can represent every tag. The table tag can be defined using the table. The table row tag can be defined using tr. The table header tag can be defined using th. The table data tag can be defined using td. And the caption tag can be defined using caption. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question that we have is, what is the purpose of meta tag in HTML? And the answer is, the meta tag are the tags which are defined inside the head tag. Some of the important meta tags include meta char set. This sets the character encoding for your document to UTF-8, ensuring your web page correctly displays the special characters, symbols, and text in the multiple languages. Next on we have this. This meta tag ensures that the web page is rendered using the latest version of Internet Explorer's rendering engine. And then next on we have this meta tag. This meta tag provides a short description of your web page content for search engine and social sharing. Next on we have this meta tag. So this meta tag basically makes your web page responsive by controlling its dimensions and scaling on mobile devices. So that's it about the meta tags. So now let's move on to the next question. And the next question is, what is the use of alt attribute in images? So the answer is, the image alt attribute is used to specify the alternate text of the images. It is useful when the images are not displayed. It is used to give the alternate information of an image. So now this is the syntax to provide an alt attribute to an image. Now let's move on to VS Code to apply it practically. So right here we can see that I have used the image tag to provide an image, and along with that here I have provided the alt attribute. So we are just going to save this file and then we are just going to run it. So right here we can see that the image has been provided. Here is the image. Now what we are going to do is we are going to remove the image and then we are going to see what is the function of alt attribute. But now here we can see that the image has been removed, but we can see the Doraemon text here. So this is basically the alt attribute that I have provided to my image. So this is why we use the alt attribute in case the browser is not able to load the image. Instead of that, the alt attribute appears. Let's move on to the next question. And the next question is, what is image map? The image map facilitates you to link many different web pages using the single image. You can define shapes and images that you want to make the part of the image map. So basically what I want to tell here is, we are going to add one image, and then on that image we are going to make one particular section on which we are going to click, and that will open a particular browser. So like this, there will be one image, and suppose we are going to click here, and that will open a new browser. So let's move on to the VS Code and we are going to see how to apply this. So right here we can see that we have provided one image source, the alt attribute, the inline styling. Now inside the map tag, what we have done is we have provided one coordinate and then we have given one link. So after this, again here we have provided one coordinate and then we have given the google.com link. And here we have made the 3 area of the image as a image map. Like we have converted the 3 areas of image into the image map. We have linked 3 different links to the 3 different points. Now let us look at the output. So this right here is the output. Here we can see that my cursor is converting into the pointer. So that means this is the image map. Again, this is also the image map. This is also the image map. But this is not the image map. We have included 3 different links on the 3 different images. So right here, I am going to click and this is opening the Google web page. So this is how we create an image map and this is the use of the image map. So now let's move on to the next question. And the next question we have is, what is the use of span tag? Give one example. So the answer is, the span tag in HTML is an inline container used to group and style a part of text or the content within the document. So with the help of span tag, we add the color to the text, we add the background to the text, and we highlight any color text. So this is the example of a span tag. Here we can see we have opened one paragraph tag. Inside that paragraph, we have written this is the page we use span, and we have opened the span tag and we have provided the inline styling, and then we have closed the span tag. So basically, span tag is used to provide the inline styling. So now let's move on to the next question. And the next question is, what is the use of an iframe tag? And the answer is, the iframe tag in HTML is used to embed another HTML document within the current web page. It essentially creates a frame or a window that displays the content from an external or internal URL. So right here we can see this is the syntax of an iframe. Here we open the iframe tag, then we provide the URL to the other web page and then we close the iframe tag. Here you can see we have opened the iframe tag, then we have given one web page, like we have created some demo.html, another web page, and then we have provided some inline styling. And this is the real-time use of iframe tag. Here we have opened the iframe tag. The source we have provided is of www.edureka.com, and then we have closed the iframe tag. So this is the use of the iframe tag. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question we have is, what is the difference between an absolute and relative URL? And the answer is, an absolute URL includes the full web address, the protocols such as HTTP or HTTPS, and the domain name such as www.example.com. Whereas on the other hand, the relative URL specifies the location of the resource related to the current web page. Right here you can see this is the absolute URL which contains the protocol and the domain name. And this is the relative URL which only contains the path of the resource. So that's it about the absolute and relative URL. Now let's move on to the next question. And the next question that we have is, what is the difference between link tag and the anchor tag? And the answer is, the anchor tag is used to create a hyperlink to another web page or to a certain part of the web page. These links are clickable, whereas the link tag defines the link between the document and an external resource. And these links are not clickable. So here you can see, this is the example of anchor tag and the link tag. So now let's move on to the next question. So the next question that we have is, what is the difference between figure tag and image tag? And the answer is, the figure tag specifies the self-contained content like diagrams, images, code snippets, etc. Figure tag is used semantically to organize the content of the images like image and image caption, whereas the image tag is used to embed the picture inside the HTML5 document. So right here you can see the syntax. Here we have opened the figure tag. Inside the figure tag we have provided one image and the description, also the caption, and then we have closed the figure tag. So basically image tag is used inside the figure tag. Now let's move on to the last question of HTML. And the last question is, how to handle event in HTML? So for this we are going to move on to our VS Code and there we are going to answer this question. So the simple answer to how to handle events in HTML is JavaScript. We use JavaScript to handle events in HTML. Right here we have created two functions. Then we have added one event, that is onClick event, and then here we have added one input box, and then whenever a user is going to write something inside the input box, the JavaScript will read that input. So right here we have to handle this event which is onClick. For that we have also included one alert function. So now let us look at the output. So this is the output here. Let's see, I'm going to type something and that's it. It is reading, but this is not important. The important thing is whenever I'm clicking here, this is giving me one pop-up button was clicked. So this is called the event handling. Here we have used JavaScript to handle this on-click event. So that's it about the HTML interview questions. And now we will move to the CSS interview questions. Here again we are going to cover top 15 CSS interview questions. So first of all, let us move on to the first question. Which type of CSS holds the highest priority? And the answer is, so there are three types of CSS. The first one is the inline CSS, the second one is embedded or internal CSS, and the third one is external CSS. So out of all these three CSS, the inline CSS has the highest priority, the internal or embedded CSS has the second priority, and the external style sheets has the least priority. So now let's move on to the next question. So the next question is, what does A in RGBA mean? So in RGBA, the R stands for red, the G stands for green, the B stands for blue, and the A stands for alpha, which specifies the transparency of elements. The value of alpha lies between 0.0 to 1.0, where 0.0 represents the fully transparent and 1.0 represents not transparent. So this is the syntax right here for RGBA. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question is, what are CSS HSL colors? So HSL stands for hue, saturation and lightness. This format uses a cylindrical coordinate system. Hue is a degree of color wheel. Its value lies between 0 to 360 degree, where 0 represents red, 120 represents green, and 240 represents the blue color. Next on is saturation. It takes a percentage value where 100% represents the completely saturated, while 0% represents the completely unsaturated, which is gray. Next on we have is lightness. It takes the percentage value where 100% represents white and 0% represents the black. Now let's move on to the next question. And the next question is, define Z-index. And the answer is, Z-index is used to specify the stack order of elements that overlap each other. Its default value is 0 and it can take both negative and positive values. The higher Z-index value is stacked above the lower index element. It takes the values as auto, number, initial and inherit. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question we have is, what do you understand by a universal selector? And the answer is, the universal selector in CSS is a wildcard selector represented by asterisk. It selects all the elements on the web page, applying style to every element in the document. A universal selector is a selector that matches any element type's name instead of selecting elements of a particular type. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question is, what are the different CSS link states? And the answer is, there are 4 different types of link states in CSS. The first one is the normal one, which is unvisited link. The second one is the visited link, which the user has visited at least one. So the third one is hover. So this becomes a link whenever the mouse hovers over it. So this is the link which the user have just clicked. So all of the links are of different color. Like all of the link will have different color. That means the unvisited link will have purple color. The visited link will be having blue color. The active link will change the color. And the hover link will show the hover effect whenever the mouse hovers over it. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question we have is, can we add an image as a list item marker? So the answer to it is, yes, we can add image as a list item marker in the list. We just need to use the list style image property in CSS. So here is the syntax to it and here is the output. Now let's move on to the VS Code to see how it works. So here we have created one unordered list, and inside this unordered list, we have given one background image to make it as a list item marker. So for that we have given the URL to the image and the size and some inline styling. So here we can see that the span tag is used to provide the inline styling. We have created 3 items and we have given the same image URL. So now let's look at the output. So this is the output here. We have created 3 items and here we can see that the image is represented as the list item marker. Now let's move on to the next question. And the next question that we have is, how can we give a shadow effect to our text in CSS? And the answer is, to add a shadow to the text, we use text shadow CSS property. This property accepts the comma-separated list of shadows to be applied on the text. The default value of text shadow property is none. Now let us apply it practically on the VS Code. So right here we can see that we have provided one heading, and inside this we have used this text shadow CSS property. This is the shadow color that we are going to provide, and along with that we have provided the font family and the text alignment. Again we have done same for the paragraph. Now let's look at the output. So this is the text shadow example, and we have provided the text shadow on the board. So this is how, with the use of text shadow CSS property, you can apply the text shadow to any text. So now let's move on to the next question. And the next question is, how is cell padding different from cell spacing? And the answer is, cell spacing is a space or a gap between two consecutive cells, whereas the cell padding is a space or a gap between the text content of the cell and the edge border of the cell. So right here we can see this is called the cell padding. The space is around the content. And then we can see this is called the cell spacing. Spacing is between the border of the content and the border of the table. So now let's move on to the next question. So the next question that we have is, what are CSS counters? So the answer to this question is, the CSS counters are a way to automatically number elements using CSS without relying on HTML or JavaScript. So this is commonly used for ordered list, heading, or any repeated elements that needs a consistent numbering. So right here we can see that this is the section 1, section 2 and section 3. Inside it we have 1.1, 1.2, 2.1 and 2.2. So basically CSS counters are used to give this number automatically without depending on HTML and JavaScript. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question that we have is, what is keyframes used for? So again we are going to open our VS Code to understand this question. So right here we have just created one box and we have provided some animations to it. So the simple answer to why do we use keyframes is to smoothen our transitions. So right here we can see this 0. So this 0 basically represents the starting point of the animation. Then we have this transform that basically shows the original position of the element. And then we have the background color as red, which means that initially the box will have red color. Then we have this 50 degrees, that means that the animation is at its midpoint. And then on we have this transform that represents the element moves 150 pixels to the right. And then on we have this background color, which means that the background of the element has been changed from red to yellow. And again we have this 100% that marks the end of the animation. And then on we have this transform, which basically means that the element moves 300 pixels to the right. And then again we have this background color. That means the background has been changed from yellow to green. Now let's see the output. So right here we can see the output. The first color was red, then yellow and then green. So this is why the keyframes are used to smoothly apply the animations on the elements. So now let's move on to the next question. So the next question we have is, what is the difference between flexbox and grid? And the answer to this question is, the flexbox offers a greater control over alignment and space distribution between the items. Being one-dimensional, flexbox only deals with either columns or rows. Next is grid. Grid has two-dimensional layout capabilities which allows flexible width as a unit of length. This compensates the limitations of flex. So right here we can see that the flexbox is one-dimensional. Either it creates the single row or it creates the single column. While CSS works in 2 dimensions, that means we can create rows as well as columns inside it. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question that we have is, how can we add 3D transformations to our project using CSS? So now again we are going to move on to our VS Code to answer this question. So right here we can see that I have created one div container, that's it. And then I have applied some 3D transformation onto that div container. First of all, I have used some simple styling and then I have added one transform property to this. So this transform property is basically used to provide the 3D transformation. And inside this transform, we are going to give rotate X, rotate Y, and rotate Z. And along with that, we are also going to provide the degrees. So again here I have provided one transform, that is after the box hover. So again I have provided the rotate X, rotate Y, and rotate Z, and I have changed the degrees. So whenever you want to make the 3D transformations, the only thing that you need to keep in mind is rotate X, rotate Y, and rotate Z. Now let's look at the output. So here is the output. So right here we can see this box is moving in 3 dimensions, that is X, Y, and Z. So this is the 3D transformation that we have applied. So the only thing we have applied is transform, rotate X, Y, and Z. That's it about the 3D transformation. So now let's move on to our next question. And the next question that we have is, what is media query in CSS? And the answer to this question is, the media query in CSS is a powerful feature used to create responsive web design. It allows you to apply different styles depending on a specific conditions like viewport size, screen resolution, and device orientation. This means you can change the layout or styling of your website to optimize the user experience across the range of devices such as desktop, tablets, and mobile phones. And here is the example of media query. This CSS code is a media query that applies specific style when the screen width is 600 pixels or less. It changes the page background color to light blue and reduces the font size to 14px for better readability and aesthetics on the smaller screen. And it also ensures the responsive design. Now that's it about the media query. Now let's move on to the last question of CSS, which is, what is box model in CSS? And the answer is, CSS box model is a fundamental concept that describes how the elements are structured and how their size and spacing are calculated in web design. Every HTML element on the page is treated as a rectangular box, and the box model defines the component of these boxes. So the first one is content, and after that we have the padding, border, and the margin. So now the content is the actual content of the element like text and the images. The width and the height properties in CSS set the size of this content area. And after that we have this padding. Padding is the space between the content and the border. It provides the internal spacing around the content. And after that we have is border. So border wraps around the padding and the content. You can set width, style, and color of the border. And after border we have this margin. So margin is the outermost space creating the distance between the element's border and other elements of the page. Like padding, margins are also transparent. You can set the margin using margin top, margin right, margin bottom, and margin left. So that's it for this video. In this video, first of all we covered top 30 HTML and CSS interview questions. I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment down any of your doubts and queries. We will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!